Today I thought about sharing the first book that I read that actually triggered the beginning of the awakening process in my life. I ended up going down this deep path and continue to explore it to deeper levels of true, authentic awakening, non-duality, realizing the depths of who we are at our deepest level, right? And I've explored many different spiritual traditions and teachers that really resonate. So I've spoken about that in some of my other videos. But I've reflected back a couple of times on where and when did this journey first start appearing in my life. One of my favorite teachers, Angelo Delullo, often shared in his talks that awakening starts to rear its head in your life before you, as the ego or the separate individual, actually becomes aware of it, right? Before you realize that you're on an awakening path, it's already reared its head when you still just think you're a normal person going about your life. So I reflected back on my own path to see when this began. And I've spoken about this a lot on my YouTube channel and on Spotify, that a lot was linked to physical health challenges, mental health challenges as well, just suffering and struggling in life. So one of the first books that I actually read to start this kind of journey of self-realization and inward looking was this book, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And it's funny because it's not essentially a spiritual book, right? It's more of a philosophical, Marcus Aurelius was a big proponent of Stoic philosophy, right? So that's where I was exploring from initially. I'd listened to some podcasts about Stoicism, and this was my initial beginning of my journey, right? And it's funny looking back at some of the later realizations that I've had in direct experience on the nature of impermanence in reality, of the fact that every moment is arising and passing away, coming and going, and that suffering arises as a result of attachment or aversion to this moment, right? That and my deeper understandings of how all suffering also arises from resistance and non-acceptance to what is, and how I then shifted into acceptance and non-resistance. But so much of that came out from this book originally, like reflecting back. I used to journal a lot, and this book was what triggered my journaling, that sparked the awakening seed in me, right? I became so fascinated about the idea of time. Actually, this was my entry point, was time. I remember reading Marcus Aurelius's thoughts, and he wrote a lot about impermanence, right? The fact that change is the only constant, the fact that nothing is lasting, nothing is permanent, except the fact that everything is changing. And that made me fascinated about the idea of time, because I was like, what is absolute? And the only thing I could think of was time is absolute, right? I could think that the fact that time is passing appears to be the only thing that is true. So then I started writing about time and started to investigate. Later on, my investigations into time, guided by non-dual teachers and other awakening teachers like Angelo Delullo, you can see that all time is constructed in the mind as well, in thought, right? Past and future are not arising now. But some of the other, I want to read a couple of things from this book, just a couple of quotes. When I was reading, this was like 3 or 4 years ago, I highlighted or underlined all of the quotes that resonated with me. And this was just me as like a 21-year-old reading the first book that was triggering my promptings to deeper realization and truth. So it's fun to go back and reflect on it now that things have gone so much deeper. So here's a great one, right? It says here, what I underlined, it says, to love only what happens. What was destined, no greater harmony. So I talk on my channel as well about how to heal from chronic illness, how I went about it. And that's the foundation, right? To love only what happens. It's going to take some time to really implement that into your life, break away from patterns of resistance, process conditioning around resistance. And we have resistance because we're resisting experiences that we don't want to feel. But that became like one of my foundations. Love what happens. I really sat with that and I wrote about it. And I was like, to love only what happens. Fuck, that's the key, right? If you love only what happens, then there's not a problem in experience, right? So that's a clicking on an intellectual level, right? Even just listening to this video might be a clicking on an intellectual level. That makes sense. That resonates, right? Then the real journey begins. Or you're probably already on the journey, potentially, depending who's listening and where you're at in your life. But to love only what happens, then you actually have to put it into practice, right? Then life will give you all of the things that you have inner resistances towards. Anything in your life that can trigger resistance is then a gift, right? Because make that your philosophy, make that your foundation. That's what I did. I was like, this is it. This is kind of one of the keys to changing my life, right? I wasn't happy with my life. I was dissatisfied. I was not happy with myself. There was something missing. And this was the beginning of it. As I said, it went a lot deeper with other non-dual, direct spiritual awakening pointings and teachers, and lots of meditation and inquiry into my own direct experience of reality. But even as far as that path has gone since this, like 3 or 4 years later, the foundation is still the same, right? Non-resistance. Don't resist whatever life is giving you. Don't resist whatever comes into your life. Don't fight it. See the fighting happening, right? You can't eradicate resistance without experiencing resistance. You can't get rid of anything from your experience without experiencing it. So whether that's a symptom that you don't want to experience anymore, or an emotion that you don't want to experience anymore, or an intrusive thought that you're afraid of experiencing, right? Dark thoughts. You actually can't get rid of anything without experiencing it first, fully, deep. And you can go deeper than your mind thinks you can. You can go way deeper. You can't go too deep into anything. That's literally just a fear thought pulling you out. This is like the biggest fear that people have. It's like, what if I go too deep into whatever is arising? Depression, fear. Take your own approach, but I'm just sharing my approach. And any time that I've gone deeper into something that my mind was like, fuck it, you're going to die, you're going to go insane, I was just like, there's something I'm afraid of here. There's something I'm afraid to experience. What is it? Can I open it? And then I always experience more freedom to just live, right? To just enjoy the moment. But you have to see everything first. So when resistance is arising in your life, that is a gift. It's not a sign that something's gone wrong. All right. So let's see if I can find something else here. Here's another good one. Don't you see how much you have to offer beyond excuses like can't, right? Because can't is like resistance again. It's the mind saying, I can't handle this. But anything that life is giving to you, it's in your experience because you can handle it. Or it's in your experience to open you up to your true potential of what you can handle beyond what your ego thinks you can handle, what your separate kind of mind thinks you can handle. I saw a lovely thing on Instagram the other day, a nice quote saying, you were given this mountain so that you can show others that it's climbable, or something like that, right? You are given this suffering to find your truest self, your own liberation, right? I saw another thing, Jim Carrey was talking about suffering is the only way to salvation. And I agree completely. It's so true. Suffering is your greatest guru. Suffering is how you find freedom, right? So any suffering that life is giving you, that is your kind of navigating that suffering is your gift to the world. Process your suffering not only for yourself, but for others as well. Because it does, right? That's the only way that I'm able to make these videos and talk about it to help other people now, is because of what life gave me, right? And in the moment when it was happening, I thought it was so unfair. I was like, my parents have no idea what I'm going through. My friends have no idea what I'm going through. And if any of them had to go through what I was going through, there's no ways that they could handle it. That's what my mind was saying. Who knows if that's true or not? But it was super fucking intense. I thought it was so unfair that at the age of 21, I was like chronically ill. But it was actually a gift to me and to others that I can now help on this path, right? If you can open up to the suffering that your mind is resisting, it becomes your gift to the world. Okay, so that's one more quote. Let's see if we can find anything else. Yeah, you're a great one. Continue along this pathway. Remember this principle. When something threatens to cause you pain, the thing itself was no misfortune at all. To endure it and prevail is great good fortune. Right? Same thing with suffering, with pain, with symptoms if you're struggling from chronic illness, with shadow work if you're on the awakening path. If something is bringing you trouble, resistance, pain, suffering, to experience it and prevail is no misfortune. It's actually great good fortune. Exactly my experience with what was initially the worst thing that could ever happen to me. I lost everything. I lost everything in my life. I lost my relationship. I lost my career in my university path, like my studies. I lost my job that I was working at the time. This is really fucking stripped away from me. Everything. Absolutely rough for the ego. Yet, what a great good fortune. You first have to be broken down by life. It sounds cliche, but it's like the analogy of the phoenix, right? The phoenix kind of dies, gets burned, bursts into flames, and rises from the ashes, fresh and new. It's cliche, but there's a reason these analogies are powerful. There's a reason these kind of cliche metaphors and symbols transcend time, that last, because they're pointing to something powerful, right? So that's exactly how it was for me. It always sounds very cliche to say a phoenix rising from the ashes, but it's true, right? I was burnt, and what was left, it was almost like purified, right? It's like purifying by burning up the parts of you that are inauthentic, burning up the parts of you that are not meant to exist anymore. And it's rough, but if you let it go, if you let life strip it away, then what's left is more authentic, it's more true, it's more real, it's more powerful, it's more inspiring to others. Okay, maybe we do one more quote from this book. Let's see. Yeah, here's a good one. Disturbance comes only from within, from our own perceptions. And then just shortly after that, he wrote, the world is nothing but change. Our life is only perception. Disturbance comes only from within, from our own perceptions. So you don't need to change anything outside of yourself. You don't need to change a single other person in your life. Disturbance comes only from within. This is powerful, right? Because if you're stuck in a victim mindset, you are believing that the external circumstances are what's causing you suffering and you are a victim of that. It takes a great level of maturity, and I'd probably say this is one of the most important steps in anybody's path to awakening and transformation and healing, is to take responsibility for your own suffering. Don't put it on anybody else. That's not going to help you, right? It's not going to help you blaming the government, blaming a vaccine, blaming a virus, blaming anybody, right? You can do that, right? If you want to argue, you can do that. I'm sharing how to transform your life, and how to transform your life is not to fight with the world, right? Realize that you are creating your own reality, right? The world is belief. So if you believe that you're stuck and you are a victim and you're doomed, life will reflect that, right? You're gonna see it everywhere you look. I have a close friend or someone that I work with often, and we end up seeing each other quite a bit, and we experience very similar things. But his perspective is often, man, I hate this, man, this is so shit. For me, it's like, oh, cool, this is, sometimes it's challenging, whether it's work or a person or something. Sometimes it's challenging, but there's not this internal reflection of, I hate this, right? Why does this keep happening to me? I hate my life. So that is an internal filter that you are placing on top of the world. And the same thing, you can fight against what's happening always, or you can embrace it and use it as a catalyst for your own transformation, right? As something to empower you. So that's my reflection on disturbance comes from only within. The world is your perception. This was key in my journey to understand the power of my perception of reality, right? That I was perceiving so much negativity and all of that, and it was stemming from many things, right? One is a belief of an external reality kind of, being the reason for your suffering. But the other point is also not having processed repressed emotions, repressed trauma, shadow work, right? I talk a lot about this on my channel. And for me, this is key, right? You can't just shift your perceptions and everything is fine and dandy. Shifting your perception is the foundation, and then you have to be willing to meet your shadow, right? Because there's also a reason that we, on one level, attract challenging and negative experiences. It's actually to reveal our shadowy emotions, our repressed emotions, our repressed trauma. You're attracting things in your life to unlock in you what needs to be unlocked, right? So a lot of us in this modern world have learned to repress emotion, negative so-called emotion, and when you're carrying that around, you're actually going to trigger experiences that help you to release that. But if you can shift your perception that everything is here to serve me, everything is here the obstacle is the way. That's another quote somewhere in this book. I probably won't find it just by paging it through. But if you can make that your base perception, then when negativity or anything challenging in your life arises, then you can meet it, right? So for me, this is the key two parts of it, is understanding that belief is reality, perception is reality. Reality is not fixed. But then you have to process your shadow. You have to process uncomfortable sensations, anything that is repressed. So anything that life triggers in you, it's helping you to release something, right? Yeah, I would say that's important to not bypass that side of things, because many people can want to avoid feeling the negative or the repressed emotional content. And if it's still stuck in your system, it's going to be creating your external reality as well, right? Whatever is stuck inside of you will find its way out, and it will do that by attracting the circumstances that it needs to be released. Once it starts to release, this is when things like manifestation and law of attraction is actually way more effective, because you're not subconsciously attracting things to release your shadow, right? If you still have shadow and you're trying to manifest something, maybe you'll actually subconsciously manifest the opposite of that to help you process feelings of worthlessness or repressed shame or whatever. I'm going on a slight tangent here into manifestation and law of attraction, but I find it interesting exploring all different aspects of this. And I do feel like once you process all of your shadow material, then these kind of things start to happen more naturally. And if it goes so called wrong, right? If you're trying to do something and it goes wrong in your interpretation of it, then it is just a release of something, right? It's just, okay, shit, I needed to experience failure in a certain way to break me down, to humble me, right? I've had that where things are just blown up in my face, and it's been humbling. And on the other side, I could see that something needed to be broken down, whether it was an ego pattern that was arising again, right? The mind creating a new identity. Then life came in and raised it, right? Brought it to the ground through some sort of experience. So you're always attracting what you need. But if you're going to perceive that everything is happening to me, everything is messing me up, the universe is against me, that's not going to help you. Then you'll attract enough suffering to hopefully force you to let go of that, right? And maybe you'll encounter other people. You see, why is this person so happy, right? We're experiencing the same world, but they're happy, and I see everything as negative. So that's just some extra thoughts. But anyways, I will end the video or the podcast there. So today, we were exploring Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and it was the beginning of my spiritual path. And the funny thing is, it's not such a spiritual book. So awakening might be happening in your life through anything that resonates, right? Any message that lights a fire in you. That's how to find your path towards awakening. This is how I went from Meditations by Marcus Aurelius to some like non-dual teachers like Angelo DeLillo. It was just through following what was fascinating to me, what like really lit something up inside of me. And that's how that path unfolded. It was just like, then I was listening to Sam Harris, then I was listening to Adyashanti, then I was listening to Angelo. And I continue to follow that kind of a fascination in my life. So I hope this was helpful, and good luck to you on your path. If you need one-on-one assistance, I do offer coaching on my website, so check out the link below. If you want to work with me to explore whatever is arising in your experience and what we can do to release things, or to reflect back to you what might be your beliefs, or it's generally what I help people with is subconscious beliefs that are keeping them stuck. And when we talk about it, it becomes quite obvious where the resistance is playing out. So anyways, check that out if that calls to you. All right, goodbye.